Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about transitioning from a traditional school to online school, because I think some people think that going online it's a little bit more intimidating just because, everyone has gone the traditional route for so long, or maybe you're not as technically inclined as you'd like to be, or you just haven't been in school for a long time and then all of a sudden you're going back and everything's online. So I kind of wanted to talk about it and give you guys some tips and kind of break it down to really show you that it's not as scary as it might portray to be. So I'm going to give you some examples and some tips of how I transitioned from my BSN traditional route to an FNP student all online. And I first want to say this is not for people who are in elementary school, middle school, high school, who are now online. This is for people who are in college and maybe their undergrad degree was traditional and now their graduate degree is online or whatever it is. So I just want to say that up front. Of course, I'm more than happy to have you here and to watch, but it's not for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. So first I kind of just want to give you guys a scenario because I really want to show you that it's not as different going to school online than it is going the traditional route. So when you go the traditional route, I'm just going to give my example when I was in schools because that's all I can really speak on. So my BSN program was traditional. I would get up every single morning very early, get ready, eat breakfast, drive to school, sit down and lecture for about 3 hours, maybe have like a lunch break and then have another course, sit for 3 hours for lecture. And then maybe once a week or a couple times a week, we would have either like a lab or a simulation that we had to be on campus for. And then I would go back home. And then any quizzes or any papers or any studying or any pieces of homework that we have, I personally did at home, or other students might do it in the library or whatever. But when I actually had to go on campus into school was for lecture. So if you kind of transition that traditional route into an online state, what I'm doing now is getting up early, not super early, but I do like to get up early because I want to get my work done as soon as possible so I can have the rest of the day to do whatever I'd like to do. So I'd get up early. I don't necessarily have to get ready in terms of like, putting on clothes, looking presentable, brushing my hair, whatever. Can get up, walk myself to my kitchen, make some breakfast, and then walk myself to my living room and open my computer and hop onto class. And for me, I can listen to, in our program, when in our computerized program, all of the lectures throughout the whole semester are already presented. So it's not recommended, but technically you can listen to every single lecture in one day if you do so please. I didn't do that, but I can go ahead and go on to lecture because in our program, nothing was live where I had to be on there at a certain time, except when we had to take our exams, of course. But other than that, I would go on, hop on. Everything was pre-recorded, and it was really cool because, if I needed to pause my lecture, I could, use the restroom or eat something or whatever. And I could slow down the speed of how the professor was speaking or speed it up or whatever. So I could really tailor it to how I study best. And the speed of the professor speaking, so I can make sure I can get all my notes done. I can pause whenever I want and all of that. I can go about my day and have lunch, and then I can do all, if I want to listen to another lecture for another course, I can do that as well. And then do any homework, papers, tests, quizzes, anything I would do in a traditional setting online, and I would do it at home anyways. So I really wanted to, the whole point of me saying that is to show you that when you actually go to school, you're going to school mostly for, labs, simulations, and for lecture, and that interaction with your professor and yourself, and obviously any friends that you make along the way. When you transition to online school, it's the same thing. You're just going to lecture in your living room. You're still interacting with your instructor, not in real time, but they are still there for you. You can email them. Some of them, you can call them if you need help or if you want to FaceTime them. They are still there for you, but not in the traditional way. Another point is The one thing that I think that is a pretty strong downfall of going to school online is the lack of interaction with your students and your classmates, because in a graduate level, they usually have discussion boards where that's kind of like your participation when you talk about a case study and you give your input and, critique other ones and everything like that. But you really, no matter what, you cannot compare that type of interaction versus going to school traditionally and making friends. And, you just can't compare the two. But you still do have that interaction. And even with me, I've made some good friends on school, and we have like our little text group going on, and a couple times a semester usually you have to go to campus anyways, so that's kind of really the only downfall. And maybe for some people who really need that instructor interaction for you to really understand the material during lecture, that might be a factor too. So if those two things are very prominent in your studies, then I think maybe rethinking an online route, you might want to rethink it and see if there's a traditional route for whatever program that you want to be in. But if that's not as high of a priority for you, then online school is really not that much different. So let's give you another scenario. Each semester, you usually have new instructors. You have to go find where your classrooms are, and that's the traditional route. You wake up for the new semester, you got to go and see, what building am I in, what classroom am I in, you go and you find your instructor. Online, you just pop up your computer and you're usually on the same computerized program that you were in the start of your program. So you already know how that works. So now you're going to the new classes, seeing who your new instructors are, different syllabi, where your grades are located, where your assignments are located, and all of that stuff. So you're really doing the same thing, you're just applying it to your computer. That's really all that it is. And the stories might be a little bit dramatic or whatever, but I'm just trying to show you that there's really not that much of a difference. Now, if you are worried that you haven't been to school in a long time, or maybe you have, but you're not as computer savvy as you would like to be, maybe before you start a program, if you have time, to do a hybrid program or a hybrid class. So for one of my classes, I think a couple actually, in my nursing program, it was a hybrid class. So half of it was online and half of it was in person, but there was more online components. But that gave me like a little sneak peek or a little taste of what online classes are like. And for me personally, I do way better studying alone and doing kind of my own thing. I really don't do well in a group setting for studying because that's just not how I study. So going to school online is kind of like a dream for me, except for the interaction part. It kind of sucks because it would be nice to have some like close friends to, vent to and, just talk about life and, whatnot. But it's still, for me, in the academic standpoint, it's a dream because I can do everything on my own time, in my own schedule, and it's wonderful for me. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? I completely lost my train of thought and I still don't know what I was going to say, but I'm just going to keep it moving. So another thing that you go to, school for is for labs and for simulation. Now, when you're in the graduate program, depending on what program you are, but I'm going to stick with my FNP program, instead of going to a skills lab or whatever, we have to practice our own skills on, like a family member or a friend or a significant other, whatever, and we would video it and send it in, just like we would have someone watch us do it in person and get critiqued and just do the same thing that we would have done in person. So that's, might be a little bit weird, kind of like setting up your camera and stuff if you're not used to that, but you'll get used to it and that would be fine too. Another thing is we have clinical. Just like we had clinical in nursing school, we didn't go into school for clinical, we went to a location. That's going to be the same thing in the graduate level, so don't worry about that. One thing that is definitely very different is taking exams. And I cannot speak for every program, I'm just speaking for the one that I'm in. But in a traditional setting, you go to class and you take your exam, whether you take it on the computer or you take it, through paper or whatever it is, that's that way. When you go to school online, just speaking for mine, you have to, it's like a program that they kind of, I don't know if they're actively watching you take your exam or they're recording you and they check later to see if everything was up to par. So basically it's like you're on your computer taking your exam and they're recording, I'm assuming, you going through the process of, signing in your name and picking out which exam you're going to take, and then you show your ID and all this stuff, and make sure that there's no materials on your paper. Materials on your paper. Materials on your paper or on your desk or wherever you are, making sure that nobody is in the room, with you or trying to tell you answers or whatever. So that's kind of a little bit different. And when I first took my first midterm on it, I was nervous because I'm pretty sure my face turned bright red, because I'm like, even though I wasn't doing anything wrong, but you just kind of like feel weird like having somebody watch you take your exam. But when you're in a traditional setting, your instructor is still watching. It's the same thing, except that it's just a little different on the computer. So that's kind of the only thing that was a little bit different, that I was kind of like, but that's okay. Oh, what I did want to say was, so if you're worried about not being, technology inclined or anything like that, usually whatever program you're in, you're going to use the same computerized program throughout the whole program. So once you learn it in the beginning, it's the same thing throughout the whole program. It's just, it replaces the classes and the assignments and stuff like that. But the same process of how to upload an assignment, how to take an exam, where things are located, that's usually the same. They just replace it with a different class. So what I recommend, and usually what I am assuming most people or most schools do, when we had our orientation, there was one part of it where it showed us like a tutorial and a tour and a video, how to upload an assignment, how to start an exam, how to take a quiz, where are your grades located, stuff like that. So you are, you can have one on your computer, you can have one window with the video going and another window with you on your program's website or whatever it is, and just follow along with it so that you know what you're doing, because it's kind of like helping you organize yourself. Because if you know where things are, it's going to be quick. You know how to upload your assignment, and you're not like asking your instructor, how do I do this? Or, and you kind of calm yourself down a little bit. So they're setting you up for success. It's not to set you up for failure or whatever. So I would take the first maybe 1 or 2 days to really understand how your computerized program works. And once you do that, you will feel so much better. You'll be automatically know, okay, I know I need to upload my assignment there, I take my quiz here, I do this, and blah, blah, and whatever. So really, all in all is what I'm trying to say. It is not as different as you may think that it is. And it's completely okay to be nervous, because I was definitely nervous when I first started, but I wanted to make this video to help people not be as nervous as I was, because really when I sat and thought about the difference between me going to school in a traditional setting versus what I'm doing now online, it's very similar and it has its differences. But for me, I found that it was great because I can go on my schedule, on my time. I can pause if I need to. I can go and do whatever I need to do. I have more time to do other things that I wanted to do as well, because I can set the schedule how I want to. It's not that like going traditional setting, like, your class is at 8 o'clock. You can't just walk in at 10 and get all the information, stuff like that. But you need to really do what's best for you and how you study and how you learn. And if you learn in a traditional setting with structure, then I think that's your best way. If you want to do things on your own terms and in your own way, in your own structure and schedule, then online is great for you. One thing that I do really want to say, and this is very serious, if you are not a self-driven, self-determined, check yourself type of person, online school is probably not going to be for you, because you don't, when I was in the traditional setting, the instructors were really good saying, remember you have a test next week, or you have an assignment next week, or whatever. And sometimes they're good at that online too, like giving you announcements and stuff. But you really need to know when you have your tests, when you have projects due, when you have quizzes due, stuff like that. And if you're not a self-driven person, if you need someone to constantly tell you something, then probably online is not for you, because you really need to be self-determined and know when things are due. Because if you don't do something, you can't say, oh, you guys never told us, because it's in the syllabus and they're going to be right saying that that was your responsibility. That's you need to know when things are due. So if you want to be online, it's going to be okay. Just take a few days to really understand how your program works. Read the whole syllabi for all your classes, because you really want to know how point systems work, how things are needing to be turned in, because it's obviously going to be different turning in a paper in person versus turning it online. Things like that. Just understand that it's going to be a little bit different, but you'll quickly adapt to it. It's not something impossible, and you guys will be fine. It'll be great, and you will love whatever program that you're in. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone that is here. I hope that this can help you transition into your online program a little bit more smooth. I will go ahead and put my Instagram right up here in case you guys want to follow along. Please consider subscribing if you like nursing videos. I'm probably going to do a FNP semester 2 recap soon, so look out for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Remember to always believe in yourself, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.